Hi, this would be the final video in the cart and decision tree series. In last few videos, we have developed intuition around cart. We have understood how decision trees work. We have understood some of the metrics and calculations like Gini coefficient. We have also developed some understanding about how decision trees tend to overfit the problem. And we have learned of methods to control this overfitting. Without much delay, I in this video want to discuss about uh, a live example. We take iris dataset and we take glass dataset. You might have both. You might have seen both of these datasets in prior videos. If you haven't watched the earlier videos, I would suggest you first watch those videos before watching this. In this video, I am going to show a hands-on Python code to implement decision trees in both these data sets. So first, let's work on iris dataset. This is one of the famous and foundational datasets. This is a data collected by the great Fisher, who is known as one of the fathers of statistics. He collected 4 measurements for 3 particular species of a flower called iris. He measured petal length, petal width, sepal length, and sepal width for over 200 flowers, and these form into 3 categories of different corresponding to different species of iris. Let's have a look at this data and see if we can use the techniques which we have learned to attack this classification problem. Remember the same data set, we have tried logistic regression so far, we have tried KNN, we have tried naive Bayes algorithm. uh, I would urge you just quickly once go back and check what were your model's accuracy scores using these three algorithms. Let's run our decision tree algorithm and see how this decision tree algorithm performs as compared to previous algorithms that we have learned so far. So as customary, I import pandas for my dataset operations as PD. I would import matplotlib for my plotting, and I would want these plots to be rendered inline, and hence I use matplotlib inline. I would also use sklearn import tree to import the decision tree algorithm. I would import test train split and classification report for splitting my dataset and to finally get an accuracy report of my algorithm. As I save all my datasets in the data folder, I read from there, and you would also find the names in the same folder. I have passed on these names. Let's read this data and see how it looks like. So you see our data set has 150 rows, 150 observations, and 5 columns. Out of these 5 columns, sepal length, sepal width, petal width form the features, and what we are trying to predict is the species. So because the test train split library works on features and the y variable separately, I move all the features by dropping species, and then for y I just include species. I pass x and y to the test train split library. I want to split it at a 30-70 percentage. That means 70% of my data would be available for train and my test size would be 30%. For replicability, I always use a random state. I would strongly suggest you also to use the number, doesn't matter, you can use any number. I import a decision tree classifier from the library that I have imported. I store it in a variable called CLF, and then I fit my model onto X train and Y train. Once the model is fitted, I want to use it to predict. Now let's try to predict the train part of data first and compare and see what the accuracy is on the training data set. But a more meaningful measure would be to predict the test data which is unseen and then do a classification report on test. Let's do both. So here I'm predicting all on the training data and I'm storing all the predicted values in yTrainPred variable. I pass this and the true values of ytrain and yTrainPred to classification report, and let's see how my algorithm performs. I think so far of all the algorithms that we have learned and used, no algorithm has given us 100% accuracy with precision and recall being 100. You see, this algorithm has correctly classified all of the data points without a single error. Now, if you might recall, I said decision trees tend to overfit. That means they create the decision boundaries so narrow that ultimately each class would have a very homogeneous set of observations. It would be totally 100% pure. And it's perhaps because of this reason why it has been able to get 100% score on train. Let's see how this performs on the test data set. So I would predict on test data set and store the predicted values in a variable called yTestPredict. I pass the true values ytest and the predicted values yTestPred onto the classification report. Let's see how it performs. And I think this is the best algorithm score that we have achieved so far on this data set compared to all our previous methods, which hovered around 60 to 70% of accuracy. This has not only given 100% accuracy in training data set, but it also has done perfectly well in our test data set. Now the tree that you create, you can actually have a way to visualize this. So I've used plt.figure to define a figure size. I wanted a figure size 20 inches wide, 20 inches tall. And all I do is I use a command tree.plotTree. And I pass my model which I use, that is CLF, onto this. This would give me exactly the tree decision branches. So you had some data around x2. It has given you the Gini score. It gives you how many values are there at each of the node, and it also gives you the branching logic. Not only in text, but it visually gives you a very good tree sort of visual. It gives you the branching logic. It gives you the Gini impurity coefficient at each of the node. It tells you how many values are there at the node, and it would tell you exact item in the sample which are at this node. So you get a very nice visual on how your tree has classified, and this makes your algorithm very explainable, where if someone asks the logic behind certain type of classification, you can easily trace back the path by using the logic this tree provides, and then explain why certain classification has been made. Now that you have seen this algorithm perform extremely good, let's pick a little more complex data set. This is the glass classification. It is a series of observations on different mineral contents in various types of glass. Now this is the 7 glass classification problem, where there are 7 types of glass, and for each of these glass various measurements have been taken. These are refractive index, sodium content, magnesium, aluminum, silicon, potassium, calcium, barium, and iron content for each of these classes, and the dataset has been created. I have given you links where to find this dataset and read more about this dataset. So as usual, I would import my libraries. These are the same reports, these are the same libraries which I imported in my earlier notebook. I would read this dataset, and as you would see, the dataset would have a lot more variables. So this time we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 features, and what is to be classified is in type column. And let's see how many types of classes are we looking at. We can do it by doing value counts. So you see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 type of classes, each labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and we have a good number of representation for each of the classes. I wouldn't say, though this is low, I wouldn't say it's highly skewed. Because this dataset was used for a paper, this is very clean, and there are no missing values, though you might say 0, but it's just that there was no iron content for this type of glass, and that's why you would see certain 0. All of these details you can find by reading about the paper here. So for the same reason, I'm going to skip the exploratory data analysis part. Also, what I'm going to skip is scaling, because all of them were measured in standard scale. I need not do this again. It also does not have any missing values, hence I would not do any missing value treatment. But I would definitely split the data into train and test part. Same method, I drop off the type column and create a variable x. I would read just the type column in a variable y. I pass these variables onto test train split with a test size of 20%, training size of 80%, and with a random state for replication. I instantiate a decision classifier, store it in a variable, and I fit this model onto X train, Y train on my training dataset. Now I want to compare how it performs both on training and test. So let's first see how it performs on training dataset. I would do it by predicting on X train and storing the values in Y train pred. I pass the true values of Y by Y train and the predicted values of Y, which are stored in the variable Y train predict, and I would pass these to classification report to see how the model has performed. As expected, decision trees tend to overfit, and hence it's not unexpected that you would see anything less than 100%. So on training dataset, the dataset on which the model has learned, the model usually achieves 100% accuracy. Let's see, the true test would be to see how it performs on the test dataset. So now I use the model to predict on the X test, which is the test part of dataset. I store these predictions in a variable called Y test pred. I pass these variables onto classification report, and now I see the model performance of 84%, which is still not bad. It is still the highest compared to any other algorithm we have learned so far. But usually, when your test scores are way more than way better in training dataset than compared to test dataset, it's a clear indication of model overfitting. Now I can visualize this tree. This tree, I would expect it to be a little more complicated because of how the data is, because it had quite a lot of features and all of the features were continuous, so it has to do quite a lot of splits. It is such a big tree that you can't actually read through. You can change the parameters which I had passed to little bigger values to generate a bigger tree which is more readable, but I just wanted to show how much complex a decision tree can become if you allow it to grow unhindered, unchecked. So one way to control this growth is to pass certain parameters to this model. So if you check the documentation by pressing Shift Tab, it would give you all the parameters for decision tree classifier. So I have retained the criteria as default Gini. Something I've changed is max depth, max sample split, and min sample leaf. Let's see what these are. You can change other things as well and experiment how this works. So max depth is the maximum depth of the tree. It is how many splits does it do, how deep does it go. So maximum depth of the tree, if none, the nodes are expanded until all leaves are pure or all leaves contain less than min split samples. So this is what we understood in our previous lectures, that if cart algorithms are allowed to grow, a decision tree grows a tree until all the nodes are 100% pure. Now min sample split is minimum number of samples required to split an internal node. This places a constraint, so default is 2. If I put this as 20, that means any particular node should have at the minimum 20 observations for it to be considered for branching. So for example, if a node has less than 20, if this node has only 18 observations in it, then it would not branch further. This is another constraint apart from max depth, which we can put on this algorithm. And one more constraint which I wanted to talk about was min sample leaves. This is the minimum number of samples required to be at the leaf node. That means at the final node, at no point of time, the number of observations can be less than the min sample leaf. So if I put 10, if this branching leads to a node which would have less than 10 members in it, then it would not go ahead with the branching. So I have put these three constraints. You would often have to try out a various number of these hyperparameters. These things which we pass to impose constraints on any given algorithm are called hyperparameters. So you'll have to try various values of hyperparameters and see what works for you. Usually people would write a for loop and try various combinations. There are much better techniques and much more accurate techniques known as grid search algorithms, which would try out all the possible combinations of every value possible for each of these and give you the best hyperparameters for any model. However, we would learn these a little ahead in our course. So for now, we just stick to a trial error. I have for no particular reason selected 6 as depth. That means level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. And this is where the cart algorithm stops branching further. It is allowed to grow only till 6 levels. I have put min sample split as 20. That means if any node has less than 20 members in it, the algorithm will not pursue branching it further. And min sample leaves is 10. That means if a branching results in a node with less than 10 leaves, the algorithm will not pursue that branch at all. With these constraints, I retrain the model and let's see how I get my scores on test dataset. So here I've instantiated a model with these hyperparameter constraints. I fit the model on training data. Once the model is trained, I use it to predict the test part and store the predicted values in white test pred. I pass the actual values of test and predicted values to get a classification report. Let's see how our model performs. You see our model score has dropped a little bit, but however, without constraint, here we got around 84%. So with slight tweaking of this, we would ideally expect our scores to jump up a little. So if I change this max depth to 8 and reduce this a bit and try out different values, you see my accuracy score has jumped a little bit. From 77 it has become 79. But these are the techniques by which you put constraints on your model, and then you are a little more confident that the model will generalize better than an unrestrained one. So that brings us to conclude this series on decision trees. I hope you enjoyed learning about decision trees. This is by far the best algorithm in terms of performance that you guys have learned. In our next session or series, we would learn about random forests, which you would see form into a group of algorithms called ensemble methods. So, until then, I hope you enjoy these sessions. If you like these videos, please subscribe and a like. Thank you very much.